You're listening to Two Chunks in a Hunk, a movie podcast where we give pumps and dumps.
Hello and welcome to Two Chunks in a Hunk. I am Jordan Wonders and I am your chunk.
I'm Doge, and you may only call me Doge when you are completely and perfectly and incandescently chunky.
And I'm Carter, and please do me the honor of accepting my guest hunk.
Yes.
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 1,000 times. It is accepted.
Thank you.
So this is the first, hardcore British with a capital B movie that
Big
we
time.
have ever done. It's big time British. It's
All other versions of this are BBC made for TV stuff. This was like,
Colin Firth's in one of them.
they loves it.
and BBC, in this case, is the Big British Chunkies.
That's
and that's
them.
who we are today. And so I was actually doing some really scholarly reading on the internet a few weeks ago about the royal wedding. I don't know if you guys heard about that.
Yeah.
Wealthy people who are nobility and royals, they married one another.
Oh, George Clooney.
Yeah, exactly. George and Amal.
Best dressed.
Why did he get married in a mall? What's the point of that?
You're determined to just sidetrack me. I'm not even where I was going.
No, keep going.
Apparently, they weren't allowing people into the royal wedding unless they had a fancy British name, a royal person name.
No way.
I don't know if they weren't allowing people in, or if
George Clooney was there.
or if this website. Well,
That's a pretty fancy
full
name if
David
you ask
Beckham.
me.
His full name is
Fancy name.
Georginald Cloonitham.
Ah.
And I don't think you knew that. But so this website told me that my royal wedding name is a grandparent's name, followed by the name of my first pet, and then the street that I grew up on. So, for example, if I were invited to the royal wedding,
Good.
Mine's good too.
if I were invited to the royal wedding, the envelope would have been addressed to Lord Edward Lexie of Hayden, which sounds so much like a real British guy.
That is amazing. That's so good. Mine would be Lord Leonard Wesley of Maine.
Lord Richard Goldie of Bennigan.
Oh my
goodness.
God. That is the best, just random name generator. It works so
It's
well.
so good.
That's really
It's
great.
okay. Go around the circle again. I am Lord Edward Lexie of Hayden.
I am Lord Leonard Wesley of Maine.
Now announcing Lord Richard Goldie of Bennigan.
You're really into that fried Monte Cristo. I think you invented it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Real
like
good
it's
stuff.
like a Cuban sandwich, but worse.
Just don't ever microwave it. I microwaved a fried Monte Cristo, and I knew it was game over when it was like a Jumanji river coming out of the sandwich when I touched
pudding,
it.
just pudding.
Yes,
Yeah.
just
Oh,
grease
man.
sponge.
This is unrelated, but related.
Do you think they served fried Monte Cristos at the royal
I
wedding?
think that's the only thing they serve.
Okay.
You
For
have
drinks
to.
even.
instead of a cake.
For drinks.
probably.
Yeah,
It was
because it
fried Monte
represented
Cristos.
the joining of America and Great Britain.
nothing more
Let's
American
fry a fancy
fried
sandwich.
Monte
So
Cristos.
when I was about 7 years old, I tried to reheat a Wendy's hamburger in the aluminum foil.
They were probably when you were 7.
no.
They were probably $1 back then, anyways.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
In
You're so
gasoline, it was
old.
15 cents a gallon. But
Yeah.
this thing sparked just right up in the microwave because you cannot put foil in that thing.
Oh yeah.
And it was truly, truly frightening.
Yeah.
And
lesson-
I haven't eaten a burger since.
Yeah, that's a lesson I learned much later than you. I'm one of those that's way behind.
Sure.
Way
You
behind.
want to talk about that?
So this is true. I saw The Sixth Sense maybe 5 years ago, which is a big deal because it has been out since I think the 90s.
Did you make it through without having never been spoiled?
Nobody told me.
You'd never been spoiled for that movie?
No one had ever spoiled me that, and
What?
I'm finding now that I've seen the movie that's like the go-to spoiler for some
Yeah.
funny tweet or something, and so I felt so foolish because it is one of the best twists ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. It like M. Night Shyamalan went way high, and then Avatar, and then the rest is history.
Oh,
But-
Avatar was JC, my man Jimmy Cam.
Oh, sorry. You're talking about the other
No.
Oh, you're talking about Avatar,
the
the Last
Avatar,
Airbender.
Avatar,
the
the
M. Night
Last
Shyamalan
Oh,
Avatar.
okay.
The not forgettable movie.
Oh, it was
But
so
I remember
terrible.
going around my office and oh my gosh, have you seen The Sixth Sense? And I work at what's funny is the comparison would be I work at a Christian institution. So it's have you heard of Jesus Christ? He's pretty amazing. But I'm walking around like, guys, I think he was dead. Can you believe? And they're like, oh my gosh, dude. Like, I saw that when I was 12, when everybody else did. And yeah, it blew my mind, but I'm not going to catch up to you. You know, it's different than, you know, I saw Infinity War.
Yes.
I just now saw it. Cool. People respect that. But
I don't respect that.
thank the cinnamon gods, though, that I had not been spoiled on that one.
What does that have to do with aluminum foil?
Because I was much later in my life, found out, like, I'm the much later guy.
Well, it's
Like
he didn't
aluminum
watch
foil,
it
like
because
2 years ago, I found out you can't have that in the microwave.
Okay.
So I'm the late to the party guy.
Carter was
Okay.
actually given a DVD of The Sixth Sense the day it came out on home media, but he microwaved it.
I did microwave it.
So-
So thank you,
That's why he
Doge.
hasn't
Yeah,
seen
I had
it.
talked to
Yeah,
him
I'm-
about the story earlier.
okay,
Carter told me
okay.
this.
Speaking
Man,
of
I
late
missed
to the
everything.
party, real quick, when Darcy walks in, the very first time we see Darcy in this movie.
Who's Darcy? What's this movie?
Good point.
Speaking of all things British,
As we
we have been,
Yes.
I think it is time that we go ahead and start talking about this movie, which of course is called
Pride and Prejudice.
Not kidding. I almost said Crazy Stupid Love because my brain is in
'Cause you
another
just
universe.
wanna watch
I
that
just wanna watch that again. Yeah.
So, Doge, would you oblige us with a synopsis?
Surely I will, and I will give it in this voice the entire time.
Gosh,
I won't.
thank you.
Oh, man.
Thank you so much.
Looking forward to that.
Pride and Prejudice tells the story.
Pride and Prejudice.
British people don't do that.
Pride and Prejudice tells the story.
No.
Of the Bennett family, essentially the Bennett sisters. And
Bennett sisters.
they're so basically they're kind of a low-born family, and they're going to lose their farm and their kind of whole home situation when their dad dies. And so their mom is pretty frantically and furiously trying to marry off each of her daughters.
Yes.
One summer, a wealthy man named Mr. Bingley rents a house in the country out where they are. And so they socialize with him, and through the course of that socializing, get to know his good friend, Mr. Darcy, who is kind of presents himself as a chump.
Yep.
Not
to be confused with a chunk.
Not can be confused with the chunk. Chunks are good, chumps are bad.
Yeah.
Jane, she's the oldest, correct?
She's the oldest.
Yes.
Jane immediately falls for Mr. Bingley, and Mr. Bingley immediately falls for Jane.
Yeah. He's got that One Direction hair down, too.
He does. He kept reminding me of somebody in this movie, and I cannot think of who it was, but it's like another.
Paul Bettany.
Yes.
Vision. He's Paul Bettany with Harry Styles hair.
Oh.
Yeah.
Very much Paul Bettany.
Totally Paul Bettany.
Paul Styles.
Paul Styles.
Nice.
So our leads have all been introduced at this point, and so the movie now kind of chronicles Keira Knightley's Elizabeth Bennet as she tries not to, and ultimately fails to not, fall in love with Mr. Darcy.
Yes.
They end up together at the end of this, and just a wonderful romantic pairing.
Yeah. And she becomes Mrs. Darcy.
And she
Mrs.
becomes
Darcy.
Mrs. Darcy.
Mrs. Darcy.
Mrs. Darcy.
Mrs. Darcy.
Mrs. Darcy.
Mrs. Darcy. This
Mrs.
joke's only
Darcy.
funny if you just watch this movie. Mrs. Darcy.
Mrs. Darcy.
Mrs. Darcy.
That's
I had to
Pride and
put some
Prejudice.
kisses in there, yeah.
It sure is. You want to start talking about it?
Please.
Guys, from the about 10 seconds that we mentioned this movie before we got started here,
Yeah.
knowing that Carter, your opinion of loving it didn't change, and
Right.
Doge, your opinion of hating it might have changed in some way,
Mhm.
I feel compelled to go ahead and right out of the gate be very upfront and honest.
Go ahead.
I hated this movie.
Okay.
Okay.
Like front to back. I don't know if I've ever been more bored during a movie by
Ooh.
performances, by writing. And I know it's not Jane Austen's fault. So something happened between Jane Austen and here.
Are you sure it's not Jane Austen's fault?
Pretty
Because-
sure.
I have never once liked anything of hers that I've read, but I
Interesting.
did enjoy this movie.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I don't want to give too many spoilers until we rate this movie, but you'll figure out my opinion throughout the whole thing.
Sure.
How do you feel about like the symphony? Have you ever gone to the orchestra? Do you enjoy things like that?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what this was for me. I mean, this is from the start. I really think you can knock the pace. Like,
Okay.
go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
And
And I'll say too that maybe you have to be in a very attentive mood to keep up with this movie,
Okay.
even though it is slow because of the language. And I'm not saying like people can't pick up on it quickly,
there were times that I felt
but there's moments if you zone out a little bit, because they are very true to the verbiage of that day. If you zone out a little
Georgian
bit,
era. Yeah.
you can miss big things.
I felt like I should have had closed captions.
And you can
on
miss
at some
funny things. Like there are some, I think it's a funny movie. Obviously, it's not a rom-com. This is very much a romantic movie.
Right.
But I don't think you would be hard-pressed to convince me that this is not produced or shot well. Did you not think that this was a beautifully shot movie?
There were times where things
Minus
were
the
pretty.
scenes. Okay.
There were times where things were very pretty. I was actually very bored by the soundtrack to this movie.
Whoa.
I know.
Really?
Yeah. I
Oh,
was.
man.
Wow.
I was.
Okay.
I think this movie is going to be an interesting conversation between us. Because
Yeah, I think
I'm actually
this will be good.
I'm going to do something crazy here. I don't think I've ever done this. I'm going to open right out of the gate with my super dump because it is the lens with which it will be helpful to view my opinions of the rest of this movie.
Okay.
I don't speak enough English to
understand
understand
this
what's
movie.
happening in this movie.
Here's my super dump, and it's kind of complicated, but I'm gonna condense it. Here's the thing: the title of this movie makes no sense,
What?
Really?
really, because I'm watching this movie, and I'm gonna get to it. I'm watching this movie.
Which one's Pride?
Yeah, who's Pride? No, I'm watching this movie, and I was looking for
Pack of
which one-
Lions,
Which one
and
is
I get that.
embodying? Which one is embodying Pride? Which one's embodying Prejudice? About midway through, it became apparent that it's both.
Yes.
Both are both.
I get
That
that.
was very interesting to me. Here's the problem. I felt as though that first proposal was supposed to be and should have been the moment that I go, oh, he likes her.
Okay.
And I was like,
You're talking in the
In the
room?
rain? In the
Yeah.
rain?
Yeah.
And instead I was like, duh. From the first moment, what I think was supposed to feel like annoyance came across as like childhood wonder and love. And like instead of, and I'm not knocking childhood wonder and love, but it didn't feel like what the movie was supposed to be communicating to me.
Okay.
So the whole time I'm watching a movie that feels like it's telling me something different than it thinks it's telling me. And I felt like that moment in the rain, what I should have felt was, oh, his pride was stopping him from offering a proposal beneath his status, even though we as the audience are going, it's obvious that you should do that.
Yeah.
But instead, what I got is that he was a nice, weird, shy, quiet guy who didn't know how to interact with people. He came across as more awkward and unable to interact well than prideful.
Interesting.
And then the prejudice to me seemed like it was supposed to be, against her status and her against him and the way that he has treated her. But I never for a second was nervous for their relationship. And I'm afraid that it's because from the beginning I didn't care about it.
Yeah, and I might be wrong, but I think the imagery of that scene was done almost. It seemed like a tomb. It seemed like a really big tomb that was not part of the mansion.
Right.
And to me, what that meant was, oh, here's what could have been, but essentially the death of what could have been. I think there was a lot of imagery there, and then we'll have later Mr. Bennett, as soon as one of the younger sisters is going off with the soldier, he gives a glance at a dragonfly that has been pinned, that is gone and is not wild anymore, and that's exactly what he was just talking about. I think this is good for her to calm down. So the imagery is there. I think you've got the prejudice right. I think he was, because of her status, very prejudiced about it, but he also had the pride. But what makes their relationship so interesting, outside of their similarities, like another vein of their similarities, is she also has a pride, but she has a pride for her humbleness.
Sure.
Yeah.
Which
and I
sounds
would say that she's also prejudiced
juxtaposing
against his status.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I would agree that they are both a part of that.
Yeah.
But I think I saw Pride and Prejudice throughout. That, for me, though, that scene was a catalyst to, this is the first real example of Pride and Prejudice. Like, he has come out and said what he did, and he is still backing up what he did and still letting pride be in the way.
Right.
This is very much a movie about just being smitten, much like The Notebook was.
Sure.
Please tell me you don't put this on the same level as The Notebook.
I would
Definitely
rather watch The Notebook. I
That
know.
blows my mind.
I
Dude.
would.
Oh,
That absolutely blows my mind.
I would.
I buy Elizabeth and Darcy 1,000,000 times more.
Wow.
Than I
No.
buy Noah.
I can buy the relationship more than I can buy, but just as this isn't Two Chunks and a Hunk, a relationship review podcast.
Yeah.
This is Two Chunks and a
It
Hunk, a
should be.
movie review podcast.
Okay.
And here's where I land. For Jordan Wonders, I'd watch The Notebook again before I would watch this movie.
Okay.
Interesting.
Okay. Got it.
So let's keep going.
Yeah, let's do it.
So the first thing, I mean, in my watching of it, the first thing of note that seems to happen is the party. Once Bingley and Darcy are there, and they're kind of all
You talking about 20 minutes of dancing across from each other in a straight line?
meeting and mingling. Yeah.
That was almost my super dump for this movie.
I feel like we're just gonna say Carter and I are gonna say things about this movie, and you're gonna go, "That was almost my super dump."
No,
Yes.
there were actually a lot of things I did enjoy about the movie too. But
Okay.
Yes.
the fact that
I will
premise
try.
was
I will try to
disagreeable
be
for me.
much more of a old English gentleman, and not just bash everything.
No, there's a lot of good in this movie too.
There's all good in this movie.
Oh, okay.
This is going to be a great podcast.
I'm just stuck in the middle.
This is
I will
honestly
turn this
is-
podcast around.
What's funny is like this is something we want, and I think
Yes.
this is something that the listenership wants.
Let's grind it up.
but
baby.
let's not forget how uncomfortable this is right now. We're
friends.
But I do want to say too, though, before we even get to the party, I noticed first like the shots are great, and they didn't
Yes.
have to have like the countryside and filming on location for a lot of these things to have those shots. But it's a lot of one shot, and I think it's done really
Yes.
well.
Yeah.
When she's walking through the drying linens.
that was such a cool opening scene for
Yes,
a movie.
and something that they do with some of these one shots is we're getting 3 or 4 storylines in about 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Like at the party,
Yeah.
when people are walking out and you've got
that
frustration
long
on Darcy's
tracking shot all the way
Yes.
through is so good.
And I think it's good. And I think a lot of what Pride and Prejudice does as a film is it just wants you to kind of stay a while and soak it in.
yeah,
Just stay a while
Yeah.
because I really do. This is the kind of movie that even though I feel like I could just almost have it on repeat, this is the kind of movie that if I'm a little bit sleepy, yeah, I think the
gone.
soundtrack
Yeah.
and the pace might put me to bed.
Sure,
It might knock
yeah.
me out. But I think the characters are really good, and I think we get to know them really well at this first dance
Yes.
party.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and to try and like level things out a little bit.
Yeah.
I think my super pump is going to be released right now, and mine is the dad. Mine's Mr. Bennett.
Cool.
Donald Sutherland is one of my favorite father figures.
yes,
This portrayal in movies. Because I think, and when you look at the director, there's some notes on the director when he chose Donald Sutherland. He wanted someone that would carry a certain strength, but also a certain empathy to have. He's got
like a warmness.
5 daughters,
Yes.
right? Which another great shot that we get several times is getting every daughter in the shot.
yes,
Without it looking like a Dillard's photo.
Actually, one of my favorite parts is when they fake pose kind of near the end when they know that.
like they super clean.
yeah, they do
their
this-
clothes.
yes,
and then
yes.
they're
So-
frantic, and he opens the door, and they're all just sitting there.
Absolutely.
I laughed very
There's
hard.
that
at
ensemble shot, and then there's another gorgeous ensemble shot when they're in Lady Catherine de Bourgh's
Yes.
home, and they're all like reclining. They're posed literally like a Renaissance painting.
Yeah.
like it's just
It's when she's
beautiful.
playing the piano.
Exactly.
And then they
Yep.
zoom out, or she's actually staring outside or something. I can't remember exactly what it
But
is.
then they turn to everybody else at Lady Catherine's.
Yeah, for sure. Fun little fact, and I'm sure you, because we're all IMDb nerds.
Sure.
But we'll talk about the cast a little bit. I mean, we get a really young Mulligan. We get
Yep.
A very young Mulligan.
very young Mulligan. Just so funny to kind of see her.
So her performance in this was not enough for me.
No, and I don't
She
think.
made me laugh a lot.
Yeah.
Her kind of awkwardness.
I think that's kind of what they tried to do, and I don't know if she was supposed to be enough because
I don't think we demand that any of the Bennett daughters be a full character except for Jane and Elizabeth. Like,
Oh, absolutely.
As fun as the other daughters are, they're ultimately set dressing.
And I'll say too, even though Keira Knightley did get an Oscar nomination for this performance,
Did she really?
She really did. This actually had 4 Oscar nominations. This crappy movie that's better than Notebook to you.
It's gonna be one of those.
I really liked Rosamund Pike.
Yeah.
She was wonderful.
She's
the director,
phenomenal in everything.
she is, and her chops. I had forgotten that I had seen them earlier.
Yes.
And there's some scenes that we'll get to where she just really showed some great acting chops. But, in Gone Girl, she was phenomenal and was so many levels. And,
Unbelievable.
And it kind of was like, let's break the you're just in this to be pretty and blonde and fair skinned. Like, let's show the people what you can do.
Which
but
is
she was
ironic because that's kind of what Gone Girl's about.
right.
anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's perfect. And so, but in this one, the director chose her, the guy who's playing Bingley. They actually were dated. Rosamund Pike and he dated and had been broken up for 2 years and had not talked.
Yikes.
And he thought, you know what, Bingley this guy's so perfect for this role. He called who he calls Rose. He called Rose and said, hey, do you think this would be okay? And she said, absolutely. The very first scene that they filmed together was this dancing scene, which in its own way was kind of intimate and early on. And I liked this too. And I think it was so appropriate that we just saw a high school movie. But it seemed like when Jane and Bingley first met, it was just very like goo eyes. And I really liked his performance too.
Yeah.
And I thought
Yeah,
he
he
was
was
just
great.
so innocent. And it seemed like Darcy was almost his foundation, his conscience, and obviously he has some kind of sway on his decisions, which we find out about the middle of the movie. But I really liked it a lot. The other nominations it got was soundtrack, costume, and like set design. So it's like the stuff that pretty movies
The
get,
stuff
like
that period pieces
like
always get.
Disney's
Yeah.
Cinderella, the most recent
Yeah.
one got that, Beauty and the Beast, things like that. So
Yeah.
they all kind of fall into the same basket there.
I want to spend a couple more seconds talking about the sisters casting though.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Because everybody's huge. Jenna Malone was one of the sisters.
Yeah.
Tallulah Riley is the youngest sister. She was married to Elon Musk.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she's the one in Westworld, right?
She is the one
She
in
is.
Westworld.
And so, wow.
And
she
come a long way.
Come a
Every
long
sister.
way.
From this
Yeah.
garbage movie to such a cool show.
Yeah.
And then the other sister,
The eldest?
maybe Tallulah is who I was thinking of just now, because Carey Mulligan's the one that we're missing in this organization.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I mean, like all of these actresses are, for the
This
most part,
cast
known
is
by name.
very stacked.
Yeah.
It's a very, very good cast. And we kind of pivoted away from it before I was able to join
Yeah,
you.
I'm so sorry.
But my super pump is also going to be
Yes.
Mr. Bennett.
Oh,
Yes.
He is, I think you said it earlier, he's the warmest, maybe just person I've ever seen in a movie.
I need
like,
very warm.
Like, I just want to give him a hug, and I'm pretty sure he smells like cologne and pipe tobacco.
Yes, and orange juice.
Okay,
And I'll tell
Parent
you what.
Trap.
Yep.
Yeah. No. So
Is that Parent Trap?
Yeah,
really?
it is.
That's
Lindsay
funny.
Lohan about her grandfather in Parent Trap.
Is he my dad?
Oh my gosh!
Oh my
Congratulations!
goodness gracious.
Oh my! I need to credit my wife, and it's an early shout out, Chelsea Willis. She made me laugh so much when she said, "This is the most elaborate Simply Orange commercial I have ever seen." Donald Sutherland is the voice of Simply Orange, and there's just
That's perfect.
yes, and so there's something about his voice that's just like
what if the
wow.
whole movie ended and it's just we're zooming out from the Bennett farm and we zoom out past an orange tree?
Yes, the person on the ladder.
Simply Orange.
Yes, it's perfect.
That's great. I actually about his performance, the scene where Elizabeth comes out and the mom is, he says you got a tough decision here. Your
Oh,
mother's
yes.
prepared.
Demanding.
If you marry him, or if you don't marry him, your mother will never speak to you again, and if you do, I won't.
Yes.
I was like, oh dang, that was cool.
Him there, and then also right after Kitty leaves, when Elizabeth comes in and just is essentially like, "Hey, I'm super into Darcy."
Yeah.
It's after Darcy's already been in talking to
Yeah.
him. His performance in that
Yeah.
scene,
In, like, the
specifically,
study. Yeah.
specifically, my super pump is localized to his performance right there.
Yeah. It moves me big time every time.
Me too.
And that is it. That is a really great performance in
And
that room.
like when we find out
Pump on
too, that Bingley is coming and her sisters are so the youngest ones. Well, actually we can't include the youngest. She's kind of off to herself.
She just gets told to stop playing piano like 50 times.
She
Is
does.
she younger than Lydia and Kitty?
Yes.
I think she's supposed to be.
She's the youngest.
Really?
I think
thought
she-
that she was older than the two of
She's
them.
14.
yeah, those two
You're
are
talking
just
about Tallulah Riley's character.
Yeah.
Yeah,
those
she's
two are
14.
just like
Mary.
collectively so immature that they seem like the youngest
just,
ones.
I feel like in directing their performance, they were just like, "Hey, what if Mary and Pippin were the two daughters?" in
Yes.
this
Yeah.
movie?"
A little bit.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
That's really good.
a little bit. For sure.
And now, when they're on the tree person, that
Yeah,
makes more
that's the-
sense when
the
they're going
biggest
to
part.
Isengard now.
Yeah.
That makes more sense.
I
There were a lot of
don't
allusions
understand
to
where
that.
tree.
Where that tree guy came from. But I think they
Mr. Darce tree.
one of the things that I love about this movie, and I don't feel like I can convince Jordan. I don't feel like I convince you otherwise, and I'm not going to
No.
try to because it just feels like it feels
You
lost.
have to convince me though, because I liked this movie. I didn't love it.
Okay,
So I
so
liked this movie and didn't hate it. So
It sounds to me like you liked the movie.
so one of you will leave the winner
oh my
of
gosh,
my affections.
I already know how I feel. I don't have to convince you of anything.
I think there's some plot and character development that happens very subtly in this movie, and I can see how that can be annoying. Like
yeah, well,
like,
I'm a big dum dum who doesn't watch movies.
you're not a
And
dumb. No, gosh, no. And I also need to be careful of not just so sometimes people use big words. But no, it's for instance the scene when just about all the other sisters are excited for a dance party,
Yeah.
but Jane or Elizabeth is just excited for her sisters.
Yes.
I think she could care less. She's sitting and looking over the back of the chair and is just smiling at them. I'm happy because they're happy, because otherwise I don't really care about this. And she felt a lot like Kat. She felt like Kat from 10 Things I Hate About You. Just kind of this haughty, stubborn, I mean, prideful. I don't want to jump into the title or anything, but
Yeah,
I think she did that well. The director also didn't really want to use her because I don't think Liz is supposed to be that pretty.
Right.
But he thought her kind of tomboyishness pulled it off to be able to do that.
I think she did well in this movie.
Yeah.
I think that she acted nearly exclusively with her teeth
Yes.
in this movie.
And I don't think she can completely help that. If you noticed, like inside of the canines, they're protruded a little bit. And I think that's what makes her kind of pouty. Keira Knightley used to annoy me. She didn't in Pirates of the Caribbean because there's so many things happening.
Yeah.
And that's really made for Johnny Depp anyways.
Sure.
Why pay attention to anything else?
Right.
Until Davy Jones gets there.
Davy Jones.
David Jones. But I think that makes her like upper lip protrude a little bit.
Yeah,
and I
no
know I'm
doubt.
being picky about it, but I even saw a note that the director had made a deal with her, like you have to promise me you won't do like a pouty face.
Oh, okay.
Please don't do a pouty face. And she didn't, but he kind of got onto her because
normal face is pouty?
when the second team came in and like filmed a certain scene, he got onto her still to this day for pouting. He's like, that's only because I wasn't there. And she does, it almost felt like she had this thing that is more naturally like Ryan Gosling's jaw muscles.
Yeah.
That's fine. He doesn't use those to death. And if he does, no one cares. But
Right.
yeah,
Because
Keira
I
Knightley,
like to watch them.
Keira Knightley does have that little bit of like a,
Well, and I would say that, and I think this is fair to say about 70. First of all, Keira Knight, I don't want to dog on anybody's appearance in any movie. Like,
Yeah.
that's not what movies are about.
You heard it here first. Keira Knightley's ugly.
No, and what my second sentence was going to be, she's obviously, I think objectively at least fairly attractive, but
oh yeah.
her smile in this movie, like 80% of the time, is just a full snarl with the bottom lip equidistant from the center as the top.
That might just be her natural.
Yeah.
But I think she might have worked around it eventually because I don't notice it as much in newer movies with her.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just a full movie.
Oh, the mansion, the Bennett Mansion is accidentally Wes Anderson. Have you ever followed that Instagram
Oh,
thing?
yeah, I've seen
So
it.
it's just shots from all around the world that look so symmetrical and just kind of bright. And it's called Accidentally Wes Anderson. It's worth a follow. But I thought that's just because it's a part of my life right now. But that shot was that.
Yeah, I mean, all of there are so many. It feels like about every 10 minutes or so, we get just one establishing shot or location closing shot or something that's just like absolutely gorgeous, like way more beautiful than it needs to be. I'm thinking in particular of the scene whenever Bingley's servants are cleaning up the rent house, and it's like
Yes, and the
billowing
white
in slow
sheets.
motion. Like that is such a gorgeous sequence.
And the doors just kind of close on themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's a movie doing well, trying to really like not pull heartstrings, but make you kind of fall in love with it. I think The Notebook tries to do that, but it's cheap. I think The Notebook does a lot of rain. It brought out of nowhere 10,000 white ducks.
Yeah.
You know, and I think
Yeah.
Pride and Prejudice does it really well.
See, for me, Pride and Prejudice couldn't decide if it wanted to be a visual spectacle or an emotional one. And there was...
Are you not, do visual, like, do those kind of things not make you emotional? Because to me, it was all wrapped up into one. I was like,
And-
everything is
and
connected.
it certainly can be for me, but for some reason just was not.
Yeah. To me, the whole movie just feels like a movement. Like it just
Interesting.
feels like a symphony.
And which might be why one of the hardest things for me to swallow about this movie was the strange, in my opinion, strange pacing of the movie.
yeah.
Which to you might have felt more like an ebb and a flow and, you know, like a beautiful movement.
Well,
and to me just felt like a slog.
Yeah. And I think and I get the pace too, because it is something too. And you can just say Darcy and Liz's relationship in general. It's like this came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But what's great is they address that. I think we see that even at the end where Jane and Mrs. Bennet are saying, I thought they hated each other. But there was
Right.
just this one thing that I feel like you wrap it all up in the soundtrack and the scenery and the times that they look at each other. I think it was really wonderful acting. Mr. Darcy
Oh my goodness.
was so good, but they do have these times that even when they are like at the very beginning in the dance scene, I know we've spent so much time there, but it's fine. It's going to be fine. It's the kind of movie that the plot seems kind of small and it is drawn out. So we can stay at the dance party for a little bit. But when she asks if he dances and he says, what does he say? It's something just really blunt. That's like, not if I don't have to, or not.
Yeah.
Not if I can avoid it.
Not if I can avoid it. Yes. And so just in those moments too, but I think they have, and it of course is the like spending a large amount of time on Elizabeth's face. Like
Sure.
they do that for a long time, especially when she looks at Darcy. But I think that's not easy, and I think they did a good job of that.
Interesting. So, do we want to talk about kind of what happens next after the dance?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's great.
go for it.
So before we move on from the dance, actually, which is convenient because I can't remember exactly what happens after the dance.
You know why?
Before we move on from the dance,
it's not
hey,
important.
just sit tight. You're going to be happy with what I'm about to say. I am going to join you in dumping on the pacing. My super dump is actually going to be the pacing.
Okay.
I think the content is all there. The content is really great. I think it is stretched too far in some ways and too thin, but also I think that it's too compressed and too thick in other places. And I think that's because this feels like a really, really tight 2 hours and 10 minutes. And it just feels really, really dense in places and then really sparse in others. And I don't know if that's a function of adapting, a full novel into this 2 hour runtime. It just feels like in some places the script could have benefited from, a little bit more judicial cutting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can agree with that for sure. I definitely could. And, it is a good point too. And yeah, touche too. Like, I don't know what the next scene is, but I think it is when Jane, like Mr. Bingley has requested, like to have her over.
Yeah.
And
the mom
she,
schemes to make her go in the rain.
In the
She's
rain.
sick and has to stay there.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so then that stuff happens. But I think in terms of the pace too, I completely agree. But to me, I don't know what it is. There's just something about it. The fact that just everything kind of mixes together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you kind of know the theme of it.
Yeah.
Like I know what happens in the end, and whatever got me there was just kind of like, it's a lazy river. I mean, it's
It feels like an event that you have to. It's not like I want to just sit down and like just plug into this movie and just enjoy it front to back. It's like, it feels like the kind of movie that I would put on if I was like, I want to sit down and really invest my interest and invest my belief into a story.
Yeah, that's
and like
true.
really work at it on my end.
And that I think that is asking a lot of the just someone watching a movie.
Yeah.
I think it really is. And that's why it really, this movie didn't make a lot of money. And it did come out around the time of like the Oscar noms. I think
Right.
it was like a fall, like late fall type movie.
Yeah.
So it felt to me like for the Dallasites, kind of like an Angelica. Like it was like this was not your go Thursday night to go see Pride and Prejudice kind of
Sure.
thing, which I think The Notebook was. I think anything.
Sure.
and
Yeah.
this was
I
the
would call
very
it more blockbuster than.
yeah, this was the heyday of like Nicholas Sparks and all
Sure.
that kinds of stuff.
Sure.
But diving back into the story, like Jane goes and actually does get sick, just like her mom wanted to.
Right.
And she has to stay with Mr. Bingley for a while, and Darcy, who's just kind of always there. He's just kind of like, I'm not going to. The worst thing I could do for you right now, Jordan, is comparing to Batman. He's not, only in the sense that he just kind of shows up. He's just kind of always
Just
there.
there.
Yeah.
He's just
And then
there.
disappears. There's literally a scene where she turns around and he's gone.
No, you're absolutely right.
So I just now thought of Batman again.
No, it's
But
fine. That's great.
yeah, but there are, again, one of the longer scenes though is, and I'll dump with you guys on this one, but when she goes to be with them to check on Jane, and she's really sorry because she's so sick, but I mean deep down inside, and Keira Knightley explains it a lot. Liz does, that she's really to herself very much and doesn't express how she feels about things. And really Darcy was the blocker on the Wii Sports on that with Bingley and Jane.
Well, and then what's the redheaded sister, Bingley's sister?
Right, I don't
Bingley's
remember.
sister. I don't remember her
I'm just
name.
calling her Bingley's sister.
Bingley's sister.
But like the walk around the room.
That's what I was gonna say.
yeah, they
And-
do. Let's have a walk
So
about the room
that's
to kind of
resonating
talk about
with
stuff.
me. What you said about a lazy river, I keep thinking. Now that you've said that, I can't stop thinking and in my head comparing a lot of the way this movie functions, specifically with scenes like this, with the walk around the room.
Yeah.
Of it's as though I'm at a museum where getting me from art piece to art piece is a lazy river between them,
Okay.
and it's like relatively pretty scenery, but I paid to watch the art. I paid to see the art.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah, that does make sense.
And so
too.
the time between the important moments in this movie just feels like I felt like it was a walk around the room with Bingley's sister. I'm just like,
yeah.
can we get to the next thing now?
Yeah,
that's
Like,
a good
could we
description.
please?
For sure. And so part of me wonders too, like, is it a period piece? Is that just how life was?
Yeah, maybe.
And they've done it so well that
Yeah,
you're bored.
it could
You know,
be.
it's like,
And that's valid.
because I can tell you right now, much less I can't imagine Jordan in this land.
Sure.
This current Jordan. I can't imagine any of us there.
No way.
Like we do not fit.
No.
And
Sure.
so I think we do have to take like a step outside of where we are right now.
Which Pokemon version is released at this point?
Yes. Like what is this?
My Blastoise on.
What can I catch?
Yes.
All? Can I catch them
all
all?
of them? Okay.
I gotta catch them all.
New movie, Pride and Pokemons.
Pride and
Right?
Pokemon.
I don't know what it's about, but that's a name if I've ever heard one.
No,
Pride-
I like
prideful
this.
Pokemons.
No, okay, a new Pokemon that I'm going to pitch to you, Prejudice. It is an ice
Do they look-
Pokemon
I
who
was
is
about to
just
say-
so judgmental.
I was going to say, does it look like a pair of dice?
No, it is a
Prejudice.
stalactite with legs and arms,
Okay.
and it is just so judgy.
How is
Just
that?
24/7.
How is there not already a Pokemon that's a stalactite, though?
That's a great
That's
question.
the realest question
Hey,
we're ever
can
going
I
to
ask
ask on
you a
this
quick
show.
question?
Yeah.
Which one's the ground one? Is it might from the ground, tight from the ceiling?
Yep.
Because it hangs
'Cause
tight
it hangs
to the
tight on
ceiling.
the ceiling. It stands mighty from the ground.
Nice.
Ooh, I never got the mighty part on that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I just tried to work Roy G. Biv into everything.
And listen, I know
Roy G.
you,
Biv. So
you guys have been talking
really-
about this really great movie the whole time, but now, I mean, when we're like 30 minutes into our episode,
Sure.
40 minutes into our episode, this is the content that people want to hear.
Here we go.
We're breaking down the features on the inside of every cave all across this great land. We got
Yeah.
stalactites, we got stalagmites, we got bats, we probably got mushrooms.
Welcome to our, I almost
Cave
called
Watch.
it geometry, which it most certainly isn't.
Nope.
Welcome to our geology podcast. Two
Oh my
chunks and a
gosh.
hunk of fool's gold. Nah, that's not it, but we're close.
Two geodes and a
Geodude.
bro.
It's a geology Pokemon podcast mixed. No, we're out. It's in.
All right.
So Liz leaves the Bingley
Sure,
house.
She does.
And we come back home and are introduced to Mr. Collins.
We are.
Did you not enjoy Mr. Collins?
is-
at all?
He
wonderful.
killed me with humor.
Okay, good.
I was every scene that he was in
good.
made me. He was so small, and
Yeah.
his petticoats were so long.
Oh, and the point, like they definitely do on purpose put him beside Mr. Darcy.
Oh, they
to show
definitely-
you. Here's the
Even
half
besides
man.
Elizabeth, dude.
Yes.
She's taller
And I
than
feel like
Why-
they also on purpose gave him a slightly anachronistic mullet.
a mullet with a
Yes.
Caesar right across
Yeah,
the
Oh,
front.
I
I mean, dude,
I don't
was
believe that
goofy
anybody in
looking.
Georgian England had that.
And he-
No.
that
his sermon
mullet-ish
was
mullet.
His sermon, and then the
killing me.
line when they're at the dinner table when he's just like, "These are most excellent potatoes," and he's just like,
No. Boiled.
"Boiled."
potatoes.
Yes.
What does he say?
Most
Never
excellent.
have I met a more agreeable vegetable.
He was this close. I'm holding my fingers real close together. He was this close to my super pump.
Okay.
He was
Okay.
cracking me up.
Good.
Yeah, he was great, and so we have this thing like for now. This is like the legitimate first stress is that oh no, here comes this guy
Yeah,
who, on purpose, when compared to any other man in the movie,
Is wah.
wah wah.
And hey, I felt that.
Yeah,
I felt for her. I didn't want that for her.
no,
And I was waiting for the moment when that was no longer looming in the distance.
What is his
Exactly.
relationship to Lady Catherine de Bourgh? Because I was unclear on that. He calls her his patroness, but
They're
what does
just
that
names,
mean?
right?
I,
She's just like
yeah,
his
I almost feel like
governess,
he was under her tutelage or something like
Yeah.
that. Something that, and again, it's another thing too, to where unless we are, what is the? It's a file. What is the like? If you love British things so much,
Britophile?
a Brita filter.
If you're a
Brita
Brita
filter.
filter,
If you're, so we'll
it's
call
an
it an
Anglophile.
Anglophile.
yes.
So this is the kind of thing that I think only Anglophiles could be like, oh yes, that makes complete sense. This is because they're Americans talking in an English accent because they're Anglophiles.
Right, sure.
Yeah,
British accent. We're all English. But he definitely, yeah, they did a good job of making him stand out as like, this is not
Yes.
something that we want to happen. His eyes are, he first thinks of Jane, as we all would,
Yeah.
Rosamund Pike, but then he's like, oh, that's fine. And the mom, what a little roast on her. She's like, oh no, she's already, but you can go for Elizabeth.
She's second
Second
best.
best.
Yep, and
what did you guys think of the mom?
I
throughout
think she's really funny. I think she was your very typical like flatline mom, except we put her in Victorian, like
Yeah.
very old. All she wants is for kiddos to get married. She was annoying, but she
Yeah.
was annoying to people in the movie.
So I was going to say that I'll give credit to this actress
Yeah.
because if anybody else had been playing her, I think I would have found her annoying.
Okay.
And I think I would have rolled my eyes every time she was on screen. But she was so charmingly annoying
Okay.
in this movie to
Yeah,
me
good.
that I was fine with it. And
Yeah.
she didn't bother me at all.
Good.
And
And
in fact, I rather enjoyed her.
nice. And so
Pump on the mom.
pump
On the mother.
on the mother. Most excellent boiled mother.
These are the most agreeable vegetables.
Most
Never have
agreeable.
I met a more agreeable mother.
Vegetable.
Vegetables.
Vegetable.
Vegetables.
I think
Vegetables.
I think what she says to Liz is kind of confirmation that Liz is daddy's girl.
Yeah.
For sure.
No
Dad
doubt.
dad loves her way more. Whereas, I mean, we see a lot of his daughters being married and his emotions about that, but we see a completely different side of him and a truly thoughtful side of him when Liz gets married. But so what's kind of sad is that Jane was Jane the oldest? Because I feel like
I think she was.
so the
I
one
think
who
Jane is the oldest.
Okay, so how old is the one who marries
She's 15.
Mr. What?
Lydia is the
Because
youngest.
they say the
Mr. Collins?
one. The one. Wait, sorry,
No,
that's not a sister.
She's not a sister.
That's,
she's a servant.
That's Elizabeth's like best friend.
Oh my
yeah,
god.
yeah. She's a servant.
Sorry, I
Okay.
thought you were talking about the one that marries
Wickham.
knockoff Orlando Bloom.
Oh, she's Charlotte. My bad.
Orlando
Lucas.
Wither.
Orlando.
That's my bad.
His name is Miami Wither.
Yeah, he's Tampa.
She
But-
settles
Because the sister
essentially.
that he marries is 15. 'Cause she makes a comment about married before her 16th birthday.
Yep. And so we see a lot of within the sisters. I think what's great about Pride and Prejudice is we see motivations for not. I don't even know if you call it romance, but marriage. Just
Yeah.
motivations for this makes me comfortable and I feel protected here. Of course, Liz and Mr. Darcy are what we would expect to be true love, and then just Smitten is the daughter with the soldier.
Hey, and can we talk about Wickham for a second?
Yeah.
Sure.
Did you guys, what were your thoughts on Wickham? Let me ask you that.
Like
This
the
feels
actor
a
of
better-
Wickham?
No. Just the
Him as a
character of
character?
Wickham.
I thought they teased too much to not tell us more about him.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole time, I mean, when it was the big reveal of how garbage he was, I was like, oh, I mean, that's
It shouldn't
a
have
bummer.
come in a letter. Like I feel like that's one of those things. So this movie to me,
a product of pacing.
exactly. The
Yeah.
pacing feels like telephone lines where it's
Yeah.
like it's held up by these big moments and then it really sags in between them.
Yeah.
That's another telephone pole that we could have stuck in the movie. If there's some sort of confrontation between him and Darcy.
Yeah.
And listen, if you're listening to this and you love Pride and Prejudice, the book, I understand that's not in the book, but I feel like there just needs to be something to keep me on the hook and keep me on the line. Because if I'm a fish, I'm spitting this bait out and swimming to something a little bit more friendly.
Yeah, and this is
Yeah,
when
like
the director
Die Hard or
a lot of the times,
like a real movie, like, Die
a
Hard.
real movie like Die Hard.
Or how about like Terminator 2?
or the what's the movie where the Blind Side?
Blindside, Rampage.
Sorry for the horrendous snort laugh that just happened.
No, that's fine.
wow.
That's fine.
you got it, Scoob.
I
We're
cannot
okay.
believe that.
There is, I think a lot of the times when directors are tackling movies that were literature that was well known, they
Yeah.
take liberties. And I think a lot of the times directors are given a hard time when they take certain liberties, but they're also artists. I think a lot of the time people forget that a director is an artist.
Sure.
And so I think this would have been an opportunity for this director to take some liberties because I really don't think he took too many. It seemed by the book, you're the one who might have read it most recently, Doge. Would you say, is there anything like,
Gosh, by most recently, if you mean like 6 years ago in high school English, 7 years ago.
because for me that was like 12 years ago. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think you're most recently.
Holy moly. I'm gonna draw upon my memory from 2011. Seems accurate to the book.
Good. The expert.
So did you guys read that this was this director's first movie? Is that true?
Wait, really?
Oh, I didn't read that.
I didn't fact check. I read it and was like interesting, and then only now I'm going, it doesn't seem right.
Yeah, I did see that he did Atonement a couple years after that.
Dude, this guy did Atonement?
Yeah, he's the same guy.
Which is insane because I absolutely love that movie.
Oh, wow.
Had you seen this movie before? Pride and Prejudice.
I had never seen this movie.
Did you have any familiarity with the story?
I was vaguely familiar with the story.
Were you familiar in terms of the zeitgeist surrounding Mr. Darcy or a Mr. Darcy type figure?
No, I was not at all.
I'm wondering if going in
This was his first movie.
I'm wondering if going in completely dry is part of the reason for such a negative response.
Yeah. Well, like most good things, you have to know all about it before you
No,
see
and
it.
that's and you bring up a good point, Jordan, because it shouldn't be like that.
Yeah.
It really
Yeah.
shouldn't. And for a movie in that way, it really shouldn't be.
And-
You have to know everything to enjoy it.
Maybe
But
that's
I'm
my
wondering-
thing is as a first time viewer, this not only felt inaccessible to me, but I don't feel as though anything. Well, and it, I'm sure there's a ton of things that I enjoy that I would go, well, you just don't know what you're expecting. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm going to say. And this, at this point, I am not speaking to the listeners. Carter, I'm not even speaking to you. I'm speaking directly to Jordan
we
because
go.
this is something that you and I
I'll see
both
you guys.
share.
bring it to me.
Do you remember the movie Aragon
I remember the movie
from
Aragon.
2006, 1 year after this?
Yeah.
How different that was from the book that we both
it was
loved.
horrendous.
This, Pride and Prejudice, being very similar to the book, I think functions in the way that Aragon would have had it been exactly similar to the book. You know what I mean? Like, I think the director in that instance changed things to make it a little more palatable. And so people who had no concept of the book, like, for instance, I went to see it with my dad and my brother at that time. They're both like, yeah, that's a pretty great
We're
fantasy
talking about
movie.
Aragon.
We're talking about Aragon. Yeah.
Back with you.
Yeah, no, it wasn't like a boys' night out to see Jane Austen. But which, if you're a boy, you love Jane Austen, love Jane Austen, whatever, love what you love. But my dad and my brother were like, yeah, that's a pretty okay fantasy movie. Like, yeah, we'll watch that again when it comes on TNT in between basketball games.
Sure, right.
And for me, I was like, no way, that's so different from the book. I hate it. And so I'm wondering if this seems so inaccessible to somebody who's not familiar with it because it is so accurate and faithful to the book, and we're essentially getting the highlight reel of the book.
Can I be honest?
Yes.
I hear what you're saying and I resonate with it, but that sounds like some insane mental gymnastics to justify me just not liking this movie.
Yeah.
At all.
And it may be just because it just blows my mind that you didn't even just like a little bit like this.
Well,
that you
I'm telling you
straight
about
up
a
didn't
few
like
things
it.
I'm telling you about a few things that I did enjoy, but
Yes.
but for me, what it all comes down to, and it's the reason I gave my super dump right out of the gate, because none of this matters if the vehicle driving these cool parts breaks down at the first mile, and for me, it does.
Okay.
For me, the love story itself does not work because of the reasons that I mentioned at the beginning.
Yeah.
And we will be accepting audition tapes for
the
a
next
new-
one. Yeah,
for
it's
a
gonna
new
be really
chunk.
great.
And
Sorry, I thought this was an opinions podcast.
No, it is. I just can't get over that you
No,
think
and-
The Notebook is better.
I didn't say it was better. I said I'd rather watch it.
so you'd rather watch a movie that's worse?
I would rather watch a movie that I would enjoy more.
At the end
you
of our
enjoy
podcast
worse
on The
movies.
Notebook, you said, I'm giving it this rating because I never want to have to go through it again. And you mentioned the
I
pace
can
of it.
dislike two things.
You can't dislike
only
this
get
more.
one. Dislike two things. No, and actually, we haven't even gotten to my super pump yet, so I still have positivity.
Yay! So basically, as I see it, this movie is in kind of three sections. We got the first section which is Lizzie at home.
Yes.
Second section, which is Lizzie abroad, which is Lizzie with Lady Catherine de Bourgh, Lizzie with her relatives going to see Darcy's
Which
estate.
pump Judi Dench for sure.
Dame Judi Dench.
All right, well, if we're going to
So
do this
hard.
now, then I'll go ahead and do it. Dame Judi Dench as Catherine de Bourgh is my super pump for this movie.
Nice.
Specifically, when she arrives at the house on the eve before the final proposal.
That's in part 3, Jane returned.
Right.
To this movie.
Jane hath returned.
Yes.
Jane at home, Jane abroad, Jane returned.
For Jordan Wonders, the scene with Catherine and Elizabeth.
Lizzie. We keep calling her Jane. It's Lizzie.
And wait, what?
We have both just called her Jane like a couple of times.
Did I call her Jane?
Yeah, the protagonist's name of
said
Pride and
Elizabeth,
Prejudice
didn't
is
I?
Lizzie. I'm pretty sure you said Jane.
That's crazy. Go
okay.
back and rewind and tell us what I said. Catherine and Lizzie in this room,
Yeah.
for me, if I'm being honest, the first time in this movie that I went, finally a performance.
Oh, okay.
really
In that room,
Really?
playing off of each other, the tension, the dialogue, the emotion present in that scene was the first time that I said, wow.
Yeah, and I think it was the most tense part.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm going to say is wrong with you.
Okay, tell me. No, I've been searching for a long time.
I'm not going to say I have because I still do. I love you
Oh, thank you.
because you are I'm not going to say brash, but you are an out there, a loud personality. Your life is a mosh pit of love and laughs. Okay.
Fair.
And
Mike, if that's
to
not
the
your
point
Twitter bio.
to where like you don't get your fix unless it is blowing your mind. Maybe
Okay.
you don't get your fix unless you get a higher level of something, which is this scene.
Okay.
when we have Judi Dench and Keira Knightley together, because this, of course, is probably the most blood boiling scene
Sure.
of two people. This might be the first time people have raised their voices to each other.
Sure.
And maybe this is the first time that we saw that you've got just a little bit of a peak there. You're like, I feel something now. And so maybe one of the reasons this wasn't for you is because most of the time it's not even something that registers for you. You don't feel it. It's at such a low register.
Yeah.
It's such a low
It
tone
could
that
be.
that you can't, like, it's just not there.
But I see.
Do me now.
Here's where I disagree: is that I love really subtle performance.
Okay.
I love nuance and subtlety, and I love
like
looking-
Die Hard
like
and
Die
John
Hard
Wick.
and John Wick. Yeah.
Rampage.
Rampage with Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
The most shout outs for Rampage a podcast has ever given.
Dwayne, hit us up.
please.
Hit us up. But I'm not saying I disagree with you, just that I think for me, there was nothing before that moment. It wasn't that it was so little that, just for me,
Yeah.
it wasn't that it was so
Yeah.
little it didn't resonate. I really do enjoy subtle performances and things where I go, oh, that's how they're feeling.
Yeah.
And to me, it was just so, and I feel as though I'm attacking you two by attacking this movie, which I was not expecting.
No.
I mean, I'm
This
definitely
movie was
crying.
so blah to me up
Yeah.
until this moment that I think I went,
Yeah.
finally something is
Yeah,
happening.
and it makes sense because if you were to pick any movie that I love, even besides this one, and say that it was blah, I wouldn't get it. But I do get it, and I'm saying that.
Sure, yeah.
And I think too, for the sake of, showing who we are and our opinions on movies, that's why I've
Yeah.
kind of argued back at it.
Sure.
Not to try and convince
No,
you or
you should've.
anything, but it's
Somebody's got to be on the side.
I really think I agree with you in that scene. So
Sure.
if we're going to that scene, she kind of spills the beans in her Pride and Prejudice. That because of course she's against it. She's met this girl. She didn't even willingly play the piano. They butt heads at the table, which has never happened to this lady.
Also a great scene. Pump on that scene for me.
Really, any scene with those two
Agreed,
is
yeah.
wonderful because that has definitely shown you how high Liz will go
Sure.
in terms of her pride.
Yeah.
Just to say, I will
I'll push back against
whoever
anybody.
is the pinnacle of respect in this movie.
Yeah.
I'm still talking back to them to a point. It was rude to the
Yeah.
point to where she shouldn't have.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you on that. That was a big moment.
Yeah. So really, after Catherine de Bourgh comes to, really we close out the act that we were calling Elizabeth Returned
Turn.
But sorry,
with
before
the double proposal.
Yeah, but before we get there, I want to talk about maybe the most confusing scene in this movie to me.
Go for it.
And I hope that you can shed some light on this.
Yeah.
She fall in love with him because he had cool statues?
No.
Was there some depth that she didn't realize was there that the statues revealed?
I don't think it was anything with the statues because in the book it's a portrait gallery, but they were already, when they were filming, they were close to this mansion that had a big
Yeah, and-
statue.
and
So
so
what
I
does the
think-
art do there?
I think what the art does is what the movie has been trying to do, is to where I'm going to give you kind of a visual and just kind of aid your kind of passing into understanding how things are, how you're supposed to feel. Like, she is already starting to come around before they even get to the mansion, to the point to where she's trying to deny the fact that she likes him. And they're like,
Right.
oh, go figure, his mansion's on the way there. And she has this scene that's really quirky that we don't really see anybody. The carriage drives up when we get to Darcy's mansion. Keira Knightley stands up and does this laugh of like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
this is the guy.
Yeah.
All my Pride and Prejudice, all of a sudden I'm like, he lives here?
Yeah.
Like, and this is already after she has found out all that he has done for her sisters.
Yeah.
And so at this point, I think she is already falling in love with him. And I think what direction has done, turning it from portrait to sculpture, is we get a sculpture of his face, his bust, to where I think more than anything, that's a delivery of the line. I think that's supposed to be a delivery of her aunt and uncle saying, wow, he looks attractive.
Yeah.
Is he, so Mr. Darcy, is this similar to how he is?
yeah.
And this gives us an opportunity for her to say, yeah, he kind of is. Because I think she's too prideful to say that to his face in that moment.
Yeah.
So we've been given an inanimate Darcy for her to
Pen
fall
name.
in love with.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Inanimate Darcy.
Inanimate Darcy is a good one. So we get the double proposals. We get Bingley and Jane at the back of the end, and Darcy's kind of pulled the strings to get them back together. And then we get Darcy appearing in the misty field to
Which that actor is almost like he has really bad eyesight. So the director in that scene had to have a big red flag for him to walk towards so that he could
incredible.
see. And part of me is like, did the actor say, "Hey, I can't see really well," or did they lose him?
Right. Was it a mistake the first time?
Did they just lose him out there and he was doing this like really intimate scene with a tree at one point? I don't know.
He's just kissing Bark like, Miss Darcy.
Mrs. Barksy. That was a reach. That was a reach.
Nice.
yeah, we're there. We're there.
Take it.
So we get the proposal, we get the scene with Dad that we've already talked about, and then we end with the scene that we quoted in the intro, right? With the "You may only call me Mrs. Darcy when you're incandescently happy." Which that last scene was so close to being my super pump.
The kisses?
I'm not. Here's the thing.
What?
I'm not typically like a soppy, soggy, nasty, wash this rag romantic kind of person. Something about that scene is so wonderful to me. Like, I loved that so very much. You can't see this because this is an audio medium.
Yeah.
But Jordan is bending over his chair backwards like he has a demon
It's like
living
I was
inside
trying
him.
to be kind and give you the rest of
It's
this
like when
moment.
years and years ago his parents said, "We got you a Nintendo 64 for Christmas."
And he
It's the same
immediately
face.
snapped his spine.
happen to me.
Okay, tell me why I'm wrong.
Wow, it was so uncomfortable.
And
I watched this movie alone, and about 4 kisses in, I went, "Please stop!" out loud.
Hey.
I said, "Please stop."
Hang on, you watched it by yourself. Did you watch it with Chelsea?
Yes.
I watched this with Jess. You got to snuggle that boo when you watch this movie.
I don't think I physically could.
Whoa.
Hang on. Hey, Callie, if you're listening to this and you just heard Jordan say that he can't physically snuggle you.
No. During
It's
this
okay.
movie, I'm
It's
I'm
okay.
a snuggle monster.
You got to snuggle. When you watch that Pride and Prej, you got to snuggle your boo.
I think I would just be too clammy the whole time.
That's crazy to me. I just can't believe
Yeah,
that.
4 kisses in, out loud, alone in my apartment. I went, "Please stop!"
my
by
God.
myself. I said, "Mr. Darcy, no
gracious.
more."
I
So
can't believe this.
I need to make sure that I get my super dump out, and I didn't.
Oh,
so
give it to
did y'all get your big one, super
I hit
pump and
both.
super dump?
I got him.
So I did have, because I have been touting the, I really think it was good, great shots throughout it.
Yes.
And a lot of the times I set the peak as Drive. I think Drive does a really good job at a slow pace of showing beautiful scenes with people, just not saying much. But they do this thing to where when Darcy is at the piano with his little sister, and this is right after she has looked at the bust, and they give us this really weird Hitchcock zoom
fast
into
zoom.
her eyes right
Yes.
before she ran.
That wasn't
and
good.
to me, that was just like
Like
somebody.
it should have been like.
Yes, that was someone woke me up from a really good dream. That's what that was for
Yeah.
me, and that was my super dump. But I wanted to make sure I did that before we got.
Hey, actually, I'm glad you brought this up. Can we talk about the sister for a second?
Yeah.
I thought she was going to be this big character.
Georgiana?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
thought she was supposed to be this I thought we were going to find out that she's just this sweet, wonderful girl. And instead she's just like, "Do you play the piano?
Yeah.
Do you play it well? Would you play with me?"
Yeah, and there was a lot that sounded like someone from Fable Streets or something. Chicken chaser, you chase chickens. That's exactly what that sounded like, and that's where it came from. But yeah, the movie does reference many people.
Yes.
But I think that's an allusion to everybody kind of knows everybody, no matter how far apart
Yeah.
they are.
Yep.
Oh, 3 miles away, just walk. It's fine. I'm gonna walk to the Bingley's house. Who to everyone else in the movie, it kind of seems like they are foreign. But they're right down the road.
Yeah.
I mean, they're
Yeah.
like, Google Maps says the best route is to walk. You don't have to drive.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
get there.
It's really cool how Google Maps has been around that long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People don't talk about that enough.
Yeah, that didn't really stand out too much to
We're
me.
blowing the lid off it now. But anyway, we've kind of talked about everything about this movie.
Yeah, I feel like
and
we-
we've kind of inadvertently rated it through
a little.
through our talking. So
Well,
let's
but
go ahead
when
and
do we
make it.
ever not?
Let's go ahead and make it official. Jordan, will you talk us through the ratings?
Sure. Here at Two Chunks and a Hunk, we've developed the perfect way to rate movies. It's known as the scientific cinema scale, and it is as follows, and I'm going to move through this very quickly. The best thing we can say about a movie, own it, don't lend it.
Buy that poster.
The next best thing we can say, buy it. The next best thing we can say, rent it. The next best thing we can say, stream it. The next best thing we can say, and second to worst thing we could say, forget it. And the worst thing we could ever say about a movie,
God has forsaken us.
I really liked that delivery. The way that you said that was really like late night radio.
Yeah.
And I know that it's 10:15 p.m.
So it's a little
as we
late.
record, but it was just really. And here's our cinema scale.
So can I tell you what I was shooting for? And
Yeah.
you tell me how close I got?
Hit me.
Casey Kasem.
100%.
Wow.
100%. A case full of Kasems just
Cool.
opened up in our ears.
Cool. That was my sort of spirit animal during
Cool.
that.
So you go
adventure.
first. Why don't you go first and keep us in that Kasem zone?
Okay. No, I'm not going to rent it as Casey. As Shaggy. This movie deserves a better grave than what I'm going to give it with the Casey Kasem voice.
Did you say a better grave? That's the most metal thing you've ever said on our podcast.
Well, I was compared to a mosh pit of joy earlier.
Hey.
It deserves a metal grave.
So, for me, I see some things in this movie that were enjoyable, much in the way that the lollipop at the end of a doctor's visit is the highlight of the doctor's visit.
Gosh.
But if I'm going to be honest with myself, this movie is an easy, no contest, forget it.
Okay.
I would be fine if I didn't watch this again.
For me, my opinion, if you remember, I think I said this on last week's episode that I hated this movie the last time I watched
You did
it.
say that.
My opinion has not completely 180'd. I would say it's like 160'd. I don't love this movie, but it's something I definitely want to watch again. And I almost want to read the book again. I think I still own it from my high school English class. I kind of want to just get my Jane Austen on after
I'm
watching
actually
this.
interested in reading the book to
So-
compare.
No,
Yeah.
you hate it.
No, it's
Don't,
fair.
don't try and lie to me right now.
That's a good-
I'm
He
gonna
meant
give this.
burn the book.
Yeah, he did.
I meant posthumously kill Jane Austen.
So I'm going to give this movie a rent it. Because I did that last night and I'll probably rent it again in the future. Next time I'm snuggling with that boo.
Both
Nice. For me, and I don't know, this is causing me to reflect on how I feel about it in terms of where this came from. I don't know if it's that like one of the first things that I remember in my life ever being beautiful and I enjoyed so much was orchestra, like and the symphony. And this was a comparison to me of that with the soundtrack and the pace that this went. There's so much I love about this movie.
Yeah.
And I have said before, and it's always kind of that thing at like a dinner party or something, and someone's like, give me your top, like they find out you're a movie person, or anyone can join in on it, but like, what's your top 10?
Yeah.
Guys, this is in my top 10. And to be in my top 10, you buy the poster. And so for me, Pride and the Prejudice,
Keeping that forever.
I watched the complete
Just Predator.
Pride Predator.
Pride and Predator.
Oh no. Pride and the Predator. That's not in the episode, is it?
Oh yeah, that's stated in the episode. Pride and the Predator.
Pride and the Prejudice.
I watched there is a Pride and the Prejudice and Zombies,
I've
right?
heard.
Yeah. You'll probably like that one more.
Yeah.
So for me, Pride and Prejudice, I'm buying the poster. It is one of my absolute favorite
I really,
movies.
really respect that.
Yeah, it is one of my favorite movies, and it is one that I can put on again and again. And it could be, I mean, it's still going to probably be a testament to how you feel about it, Jordan, but it's like when I put on, because I listen to like classical music when I'm writing papers, and I could just have Pride and the Prejudice playing in the background while I'm writing.
Yeah,
I'm
or
sorry.
something to
You've called it Pride and the Prejudice.
Pride and Prejudice.
Pride and the Predator.
Pride and the Predator.
Gosh, I hate that I'm doing this so much. This is
Right.
past my bedtime. JK, this is usually when I'm watching Netflix or AMC.
Such as Pride and the Predator.
Pride and the
My
Predator.
favorite thing to watch on Netflix is Pride and the Predator, obviously.
This I love it. I love
Cool.
everything about
You love it
this
so
movie.
much,
And
you
I-
got your tongue tied up.
Again, I feel like we say this every episode, and maybe it's good that we say it every episode because it's a good reminder to people who might be upset about what we have to say about movies.
Yeah.
This is all subjective.
Oh,
Everything you
absolutely.
say is so
That's the
opinion
best
based.
thing about art is that you can, without guilty conscience, love
Love
what you
something.
love
Yes.
and hate
Yeah.
what you hate.
And I love your analogy to it being like an art gallery because there are so many things. It's hit or miss. There's people that will stay at like, in terms of Pride and Prejudice, I'm staring at that artwork, and the two of you, like, Doge might linger a little long or like a little shorter than I am, but you just walk past it and you're just
I might
like,
be in the gift shop like, where the corn dogs?
no. I'm not, you're not.
I'm trying to eat some corn dogs.
No, not at all. But it's like you look at different things and it just moves you in different ways.
Absolutely.
And somehow this movie does that.
Absolutely. That's a good way of putting it.
So
I think you got a nice way of talking.
nice way of
I
talking.
think you got a nice way of talking. We normally like to fill up this time at the end of an episode with shout outs, but now we have a very special announcement. Carter Willis has been with us now for 4 episodes straight, and it's been this wonderful time of really just kind of getting to know each other, holding hands, will they, won't they, waffle or pancake.
And that's not a figure of speech.
We
we
actually
have been holding hands
the
for the
entire
past
time.
4 hours of podcast time with Carter in this Summer of
I have
Love
no
series.
intention to stop. It's going to be really great. But speaking of no intention to stop, Carter, we have a very important question to ask you.
Okay.
Carter
Yep.
Willis,
Yep.
will you marry
Oh,
our podcast?
What? Yes. The answer is yes. Tears in mine eyes. I will marry this podcast.
You heard it here first. Carter Willis.
you probably heard it here. You heard it here only.
Well, no, because this is going to be all over every
Everywhere.
major news outlet
Joel
tomorrow.
McHale is going to be like, you guys heard about this?
Yeah.
You guys heard about this? Over at 2 Chunks?
Was that your Joel McHale?
No.
Okay.
It was almost.
Does anybody have a Joel McHale besides maybe Ryan Seacrest?
Ooh, good.
Anyway,
call.
Carter is going to be our official third host
Yes.
of 2 Chunks.
And if you're
and a
wondering
hunk.
why he said it like that, we might have a fun reveal for you next episode.
We sure do. And you're going to have to tune into that episode in which we will be. Is it okay if I say what movie we're talking about?
I think we should all say the series that, because here's the thing. Speaking of, Carter is rubbing his hands together. Speaking of, since we've been spending so much time about this movie that we're so divided on, and I hope we're divided. I love when we're divided.
Yeah, I do too.
But we might not be super divided on these because we're about to do, what is it, 8 movies in a
Yep,
row?
it's 8.
Guys!
Guys, it's a big situation for 2 Chunks.
Should we
and a
say it all
hunk.
together?
Yes.
The
We should.
series.
Let's
This
do
is a series of movies known as Fast and the Furious.
I said the
You said
again.
fine. Fast and the Predator. Do you? I know zero about cars. How much you know about cars?
I have driven one most days since I turned 16.
Okay, Carter.
I know nothing. I don't know anything about cars except
But how much do you know about beefy dudes punching stuff?
guys.
100.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Oh, it's gonna be so
I'm
great.
so excited.
So tune in next week to the first episode of our new series, 2 Chunks and a Hunk presents
Fastest and Furiousest,
in which your 3 fastest and furiousest podcast hosts
Yes.
review 8 of the fastest and furiousest movies of all time.
We're gonna be so angry, and we're doing all 8 of them in 30 minutes. Get ready. We're just like family, Corona, Dodge,
Tokyo
Tires.
what?
submarines.
So anyway, that's what we're doing, and we hope you listen because we're gonna really enjoy watching these movies.
And if you're still listening at this point, that means you must be a huge fan. So
Yay.
please subscribe, rate, and review us on the iTunes store or wherever you get your podcast. Because that is the best way that you could possibly help us out.
Sure is. And if you want to shout out in next week's episode,
Or
the
any
first
episode.
episode of Fastest and Furiousest, all you have to do is post on social media about our show with the hashtag #OfficialChunky. You can DM us on Instagram. You can comment on our Instagram. At this point, if you send us a really nice letter, we'll probably shout you out. So
If
the
you
bar is
give me
really
a
low.
lasting look on the sidewalk, I might guess your name.
Since this is a serious relationship now,
Yeah.
I think it was great because I think for us to disagree, it's good. We've already
It's our
seen
first fight.
been
kind
our
of
first
the
fight.
dark side. Yeah, we had our first fight, and then we got through it.
We did.
And I would
really
love
did.
to, in the podcast today, Jordan, would you like to put aside our differences and take a walk about the room?
Oh, I would love that, Carter.
Okay, let's do that. We're gonna walk
Well,
about the
and
room.
there's only 2 reasons for me to watch you.
Okay.
The first is because I have nothing. I mean, the only other person.
There's nothing else really happening
this room.
here.
Second is that there's nothing going on. So
Yeah.
you guys get up, and for 2 Chunks and a Hunk, I'm Doge. That was Jordan. That was Carter.
All right, let's
go
go
walk,
that
yeah.
way. Yeah, towards the couch.
I like that.
And we will see you guys, I guess, probably later.
The coffee table. Oh, I'm sorry.